The arrogance of conquerors. The War Council chamber of the Eternal Ascendant thrummed with the low hum of power, a sound that had accompanied Asheran conquests for 3 generations. Fleet Admiral Kane stood before the holographic display, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional posture of contemplation, watching as the tactical projection rotated slowly in the air before him. Human space empty, silent, waiting. 300 years, Kane said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. 3 centuries since the last confirmed human transmission. 300 years of nothing. Around him, the assembled commanders of the Dominion's greatest armada shifted in their seats. Some nodded. Others remained perfectly still, their bioluminescent markings pulsing with barely contained eagerness. This was the moment they had trained for, planned for, dreamed of, the expansion that would cement the Asheran Dominion's place as the galaxy's supreme power. "The borders are marked," Sub-Commander Vireth said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Every approach vector carries the same message in 17 languages. Turn back. You are not welcome here. This is your only warning." "Automated messages," Kane replied dismissively. "Echoes from a dead civilization, nothing more. Ghost signals from stations that still function long after their creators have turned to dust." He swept one hand through the hologram, and the display shifted, pulling back to show not just the human territories, but the vast stretch of space surrounding them. The quarantine zone, the border that no government had crossed in living memory. "Look at it," Kane continued. "Hundreds of worlds, thousands of stations, resources beyond calculation, all sitting empty while the rest of the galaxy scrambles for scraps." His mandibles clicked in what might have been satisfaction or contempt. "The Veladar Confederation? They won't act. They'll condemn us in their councils and do nothing. The Kresh Collective? They're too busy fighting over trade routes to notice until we're already established. Admiral." The voice came from the back of the chamber, old, careful. Commander Salrus, the fleet's most senior tactician, rose slowly from his seat. His scales had dulled with age, but his eyes remained sharp. "Permission to speak freely?" Kane gestured his assent. "The stories," Salrus said quietly. "The legends. Every species in the galaxy knows them. The Vryn sent a colonization fleet, 7,000 ships into human space 240 years ago. Not one ever returned. The Kalesh expedition vanished without a trace. The independent prospectors, the bold explorers, the desperate refugees, all gone. Consumed by the silence. Consumed by their own stupidity," Vireth interjected. "Jump drive failures, navigation errors, the hazards of deep space. You're reciting children's tales, old one." Salrus didn't flinch. "I'm reciting history, and history teaches us that some borders exist for a reason." Kane studied the old commander for a long moment. Then he turned back to the display, manipulating it with practiced ease. The image zoomed inward, focusing on a single system, Sol, Earth, the birth world of humanity itself. "I respect your caution, Salrus," Kane said, and there was no mockery in his tone. "But caution can become cowardice. Yes, ships have vanished. Yes, the silence is unusual. But consider the alternative explanation, the one our intelligence division has spent decades analyzing." He pulled up a data stream, centuries of collated information scrolling past in luminous text. Humanity was at war with itself when they vanished. Civil conflict, faction against faction. Their transmissions grew more desperate, more fragmented, and then he snapped his fingers. Silence. The most logical conclusion? They destroyed themselves. Nuclear fire, biological warfare, perhaps even experimental weapons that consumed entire worlds. "The defenses," Salrus began, "are automated," Kane finished. "Yes, formidable, certainly, but mindless. No doubt they've claimed a few ships over the years, hazards to navigation like any ancient minefield. But without living operators, without maintenance, without purpose." He shook his head. "They're just obstacles. Dangerous ones, yes, which is why we don't send colonists first." The hologram shifted again, now displaying the full might of the assembled fleet. 2,000 capital ships, 5,000 support vessels, enough firepower to shatter planetary shields, enough soldiers to occupy 100 worlds simultaneously. "We send an armada," Kane said. "We move carefully, methodically. We map the defenses, neutralize them, and establish forward bases. And if—" He paused, acknowledging the possibility with the grace of a true strategist. If we encounter something unexpected, we have the strength to overcome it or the speed to withdraw. The chamber fell silent. Kane could feel the weight of history pressing down on this moment. 300 years of mystery were about to end one way or another. The dominion grows or it stagnates, he said finally. We are a species of expansion, of conquest, of manifest destiny. Human space represents the greatest territorial prize in recorded history, and it sits empty, waiting. If not us, then eventually someone else will claim it. Better that it should be us. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each commander in turn. All ships report ready status, he said. We crossed the border in 6 hours. History will remember this as the moment the Asheran Dominion became truly great. No one mentioned that history would have to remember them first. In the silence of the chamber, Salrus sat back down slowly, his expression unreadable. And somewhere in the back of his ancient mind, a thought whispered like wind through empty corridors. The humans didn't just vanish. They stopped answering. There was a difference. The fleet began its final preparations. Across 2,000 ships, soldiers checked weapons, pilots ran diagnostics, commanders reviewed attack plans. The border markers continued their endless broadcasts. 17 languages, one message, always the same. Turn back. No one was listening anymore. The crossing the border existed as mathematics first, territory second, not a physical barrier, no wall of energy, no minefield of ancient weapons, but a line in space defined by coordinates that every navigation system in the galaxy recognized. On one side, the living cosmos filled with trade routes and calm chatter and the endless noise of civilizations climbing toward the stars. On the other, silence so absolute it had its own gravity. Fleet Admiral Kane watched from the bridge of the Eternal Ascendant as his armada assembled in formation. 2,000 capital ships arranged in a pattern that had conquered 17 star systems, their hulls gleaming in the light of a dying red dwarf. Behind them, supply chains stretched back 3 jumps to the nearest Dominion outpost. Ahead, the coordinates blinked steadily on every screen. The border. All vessels report jump calculations complete. His navigation officer announced. Targeting the terminus system. First human outpost inside the boundary. Estimated travel time 4 hours at maximum subliminal. Kane nodded. They would cross slower than their drives allowed. Cautious, controlled, ready to respond to anything that might be waiting on the other side. Final. Status check, he ordered. The responses came in waves, tactical. Engineering, medical, logistics. Every system green. Every commander ready. This was the Dominion at its finest. 7 species united under one banner, their differences forged into strength through centuries of shared conquest. Admiral. Salrus appeared at his side, moving with the careful precision of age. One last time, let me take a scout group ahead. 20 ships. We probe the defenses, map the approaches, return with data. You lose nothing by waiting one more day. Kane turned to face the old commander. You're afraid. I'm prudent. Salrus gestured toward the view screen where the border coordinates glowed like a threshold to another world. That line has held for 300 years. Not by force, there are no human ships patrolling it. Not by diplomacy, there are no human voices answering our hails. It holds because something makes it hold. I want to know what that something is before we commit the entire fleet. Your concern is noted, Kane said, not unkindly. But we've already discussed this. The intelligence is clear. The intelligence is 3 centuries of silence interpreted through the lens of our own assumptions. Salrus interrupted. We assume decay. We assume abandonment. But what if we're wrong? What if the silence is intentional? What if humanity isn't gone, they're just waiting? For a moment, something flickered across Kane's face. Doubt, curiosity, but it passed like a shadow, replaced by the iron certainty of command. Then they'll learn, Kane said quietly, that waiting has a cost. He turned to his bridge crew. All ships begin the crossing. Maintain formation. Weapons hot. Shields to maximum. If anything moves, I want to know about it before our sensors do. The order rippled outward through quantum-linked communication systems. Across 7,000 ships, drives began to hum with building power. The armada started to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed, closing the distance to that invisible line in space. Salrus remained on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. He said nothing more. There was nothing more to say. The Eternal Ascendant crossed first. One moment they were in normal space, surrounded by the familiar background radiation of the galaxy's spiral arm. The next, they slid across coordinates that had been forbidden for longer than most species' recorded histories. Nothing happened. Kane felt his shoulders relax fractionally. Around him, bridge crew exchanged glances, relief mixing with something that might have been disappointment. After all the buildup, all the legends, all the dire warnings, "Sensor sweep," Kane ordered. "Full spectrum. I want to know everything within 10 light seconds." The science officer's hands danced across her console. "Scanning now, Admiral. Initial readings show nothing unusual. Background radiation normal. No energy signatures. No movement." "No, wait," Kane's attention sharpened. "What is it?" "The system we're approaching, Terminus. It's intact, sir. The stations are still there, still broadcasting those warning messages. But there's something else." She looked up, confusion written across her features. "There are structures in the outer system. Massive structures, orbital platforms, manufacturing facilities, all dormant, but the power signatures suggest they could activate at any time." "Automated defenses," Vireth said from her station, "as predicted." "Maybe," the science officer replied. "But sir," the scale, "these aren't defensive platforms. These are industrial complexes, shipyards, resource processors, and they're everywhere, not just around the inhabited worlds, but scattered through the entire system. Thousands of them." Kane studied the emerging data. Behind him, the rest of the armada was crossing the border now. Ship after ship slipping into human space like a tide rolling in. Still nothing moved to challenge them. Still the silence held. "Continue to Terminus," he ordered. "Battle formation. Launch reconnaissance drones ahead of the fleet. Map everything." The armada pressed forward, deeper into the system. Around them, the evidence of human civilization grew more apparent. Stations that could house millions, orbital rings that encircled entire planets, megastructures that defied easy categorization. All dark, all silent, all waiting with the patience of stone. "It's beautiful," someone whispered. It was. And it was wrong. Kane couldn't articulate why. It violated no tactical principle, triggered no military instinct. But something about the perfect preservation made his skin crawl beneath his scales. These weren't ruins slowly degrading over centuries. These were systems maintained, cleaned, ready, as if their operators had simply stepped away for a moment and would return any second. "Sir?" The communications officer's voice was tight. "The warning broadcasts, they've changed," Kane spun. "What?" "The messages. They're no longer just warnings. They're..." She routed the audio to the bridge speakers. A voice filled the chamber. Human, calm, utterly devoid of emotion. "You have crossed the boundary. You were warned. All vessels reverse course immediately. This is the final notice. You have 1 hour to comply. After that, you will receive the lesson. This is not a negotiation. This is a certainty." The message repeated in 17 languages, each one exactly the same, each one delivered with the finality of a closing door. The bridge fell silent. 1 hour, Salrus said quietly. "Admiral, we should continue," Kane interrupted, but there was steel in his voice now. Fear transmuted into defiance. "Launch all fighter screens. Bring the fleet to full combat readiness. If something is out there, if some remnant automation thinks it can threaten the Dominion, then we'll show it what real power looks like." Orders cascaded through the fleet. Ships moved into attack formations, weapons powered up, shields intensified until the armada glowed with barely contained energy. 58 minutes passed, then 59, then the hour was gone. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then space began to unfold. Not with explosions or weapons fire or the dramatic flourishes of conventional warfare. Instead, reality seemed to part, like a curtain being drawn aside to reveal what had always been there, just hidden from sight. Ships appeared, not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They materialized in perfect formation around the armada, above, below, on every vector simultaneously. Sleek vessels of impossible geometry, their hulls reflecting light in ways that hurt to look at. No visible weapons, no obvious drives, just presence, absolute and overwhelming. And as the Asheran fleet scrambled to respond, as commanders shouted orders and weapon systems locked onto targets, a new message arrived. Same voice. Same calm, same certainty, you were warned. This is the lesson. The human ships began to move.